Well, hey guys, welcome to small group, or welcome back to small group. I hope that you're off to a good start. This is week 2 in our series on beautiful orthodoxy. We're looking at some of the core beliefs of Christianity, some of the foundational bedrock theological truths that are important to know as a Christian. Last week when we talked about the Bible, today we're talking about God. There's a small subject. So, you know how we think in pictures? So if I said something like this to you, hey, don't think of a giraffe. You thought of a giraffe, and you actually had a picture of that giraffe. We think in terms of pictures. Okay, so when we think about God, what do you picture? So for me, as a child, I thought of God was kind of an old guy with a white beard, and there was clouds. Now, where did that come from? But probably my Sunday school class and the flannel graph, and I don't know, maybe a video or something, somebody's depicting God. One day, Madeline, when she was just a little girl, she comes and grabs me, she goes, "Dad, God's outside, God's outside." And she takes me up to the front door, opens it up, and the sun was setting in the west, and so the beams of light were coming through the clouds, and she's like, "Look, God. And where does that come from? Well, she some depiction of God in one of her storybooks or in a video that she saw or something. So we all have sort of this perception of God, a picture of him. I was talking to a teenage boy recently, and he was quite skeptical about God and even a little derisive about it. And so he was like, "You believe in God?" And I said, "You don't?" And he goes, "Well, and he kind of goes, old guy up there, the clouds." I was like, "Oh. Yeah, no, I don't believe that God either, because God is actually here, not up there. He's right here." So Tozer, as I mentioned in the sermon, has this great quote, so important. It says, "What comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us." What comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. So here's how I'd like you guys to start today. What was your perception of God as a child, and how has it changed? What was your perception of God as a child, and now how has it changed? No matter how far removed from being a child you are. Has it changed? Now, hey guys, be gracious to each other, because there's some people, maybe in your group, that their perception of God was one way, and it's actually even more inaccurate, or really quite negative, because they've had some bad experiences that's affected how they see God. Some of you might have the opposite experience. You have what might be considered a more biblical view of God. But just talk about your perception of God and its progression over time. All right, go for it. Is it time to, okay, you're not going to include that, are you? Okay, good. Because that would be embarrassing if they saw me trying to do a hula hoop around my head. Okay, hey, welcome back. So next thing we're going to talk about is, does God even exist? So we talked about that in the message, and I talked to you about 3 main areas that we can use to talk about, does God actually exist? The first one is what I'm going to call, who put that there? Who put that there? It's an argument from cause. One way to think about this is kind of a mind bender, but why is there something rather than nothing? It's a question that you should actually wrestle with. Why is there something rather than just nothing? And then, how did that thing get there? Well, there's really just 2 options. One is it was self-created, but science also tells us that everything in the universe is dependent. It's dependent on each other. So it goes to figure then that if everything is dependent on other things for its existence, then it couldn't have been self-created. It had to come from somewhere else. So I brought this with me to just sort of symbolize, maybe help you think about this. So let's just say that everything inside this hula hoop is the universe, everything in here. Which means at this point, that's right, I am the center of the universe. which we know isn't true. Remy is clearly the center of the universe. So everything in here is in the universe, which now this kind of breaks down because it's got a little barrier to it, right? And we know that the universe is expanding. So this would have to be expanding. All right. If everything is dependent, then how could it have created itself? Because everything that exists inside this circle, inside this hula hoop, had to have been created by something outside of the hula hoop. It couldn't have been created from within, it had to come from without. So whatever is outside the hula hoop then has to be dependent, self-existent, self-caused, self-reliant. It has to be something from outside that creates everything that is inside. And that power then would be unlimited, it would be all-powerful, and arguably eternal. This is one of the reasons why we actually think there is a God, is because something does exist and it couldn't have come about by itself. It needed an uncaused cause, as we say it. Which makes some sense then that in Psalm 19, the psalmist says that the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the works of his hands. That when we look at nature and its complexity and the fact that it's even there, it implies that God must be there too, because otherwise, how would it possibly have gotten here unless it was created by God? So that is the who put that there argument. Here's the second one. Who designed it? Who designed it? So, for instance, this is a banana. All bananas, by the way, have these particular ridges on them, and they're really quite intricately designed. Fits nicely in my hand. It's got a non-slip surface on it. It's got a time-sensitive indicator. If it's green, let it sit. Yellow, go ahead and eat it. If it's black, yeah, you're making banana bread out of that. It's got a pull tab across the top. Look at that. See? And then look at the wrapper. It's got a wrapper that's actually easily opened and environmentally sound. You can throw that wrapper outside your car. I wouldn't recommend it, but you know, it's a biodegradable wrapper. We know that the banana can reproduce itself. Notice how the banana is curved towards your face. See how convenient that is? We know that it's the perfect size for your mouth. And it's digestible and healthy. What a delightful snack. How in the world did this thing come about? Who designed it? It's clearly been designed. And this is just the apple. We're not talking about the brain or the human eye, the universe. Intricate design. Design implies designer, right? I don't have to think too hard about this, that when I look at my watch, I realize somebody designed that watch, just like the banana. That's the who designed it argument. Here's the third one. We're going to call this one who says. Who says? Yeah. So the other day, I got a ticket. I was driving too fast. But you'll notice that this is a warning. Maybe you won't notice, you just take my word for it. It's a warning. So the police officer that pulled me over was very kind. And I was driving too fast. It was in a 25. I wasn't paying attention. I was going 36. He asked me when he pulled me over, he said, "Did you know that the speed limit was 25? I said, "Yep, I did. I just wasn't paying attention." Right as this guy's talking to me, a dude drives by and he yells at the cop about how a speed limit sign had been taken down. And so he's yelling at the cop like, "You need to put that speed limit sign back up." Okay, now, what's happening here is this. There is some sense of right and wrong. I was going 36 in a 25. That was wrong. There was a guy going, "Hey, it's not right that that guy's getting pulled over for going too fast when he didn't know what the speed limit was." That was he was implying when he was yelling at the cop who was working with me. So we all have this sense in us of stuff that's right and the stuff that's wrong. Bible, actually, the idea is that it's a conscience in each one of us, a conscience that is aware of right and of wrong. Well, where does that come from? I mean, where do we get a sense of right and wrong if we all came about by accident? There has to be an objective moral standard. There needs to be somebody that says, as an authority, that's right and that's wrong. Just like that police officer was saying to me, that's wrong that you were going 36 and a 25. There was laws that were made that said that is wrong. It was an authority putting that on us. Ultimately, we know that there is morals because of what happens in our conscience and the way society works, that there is right and there is wrong. But where does that come from unless there was a moral lawgiver telling us what's right and what's wrong? Okay, it's kind of long to now go this. Who put that there? Who designed it? Who says? Or argument from cause, argument from design, argument from morals. What I want you to talk about is this. Which one of those is most interesting to you these days? Or which one of those is actually maybe most persuasive for you that helps you understand that there is a God who is actually there? Is it that he caused this, all this? Is it the intricate design? Or is it that there's this sense of right and wrong and that life really works best when you do what God has told us to do? Talk about those three. Which one impacts you the most? Go for it. Okay, hope you had a good discussion around that one. One thing that we ran into, and I actually kind of hope you did, is that there's, for some, that those three arguments actually aren't good enough. There's people in our midst that actually still don't believe in God. And if you're one of those and you're in your small group right now, I'm so proud of you. Like, good job. I mean, this just shows integrity and character on your part, that you are actually investigating the claims of Christ. You're investigating what people have believed for millennia, for thousands of years. Is there really a God, and does it make any difference? And so I just want you to know, really safe place to explore that. And I hope your small group is helpful to you as you process, is God really there, and does it matter? And I hope you come to a conclusion that he's there, and it matters, especially because of how much he loves you. So keep working on this, all right? Now, one of the things that might help in that whole deal is, what is God like? So if we could just establish that there is a God, okay, well, what's he like? Three things I talked about in that message. First was that he's good. It means he's kind, benevolent, warm, and friendly. Here's how I said it in the sermon. No, actually, I didn't. Well, I said it in the sermon, but it's the scripture that says it, that God is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in love and faithfulness. That is a good God. God is good in the sense that you would be drawn to him. You're drawn to him like you're drawn to good friends and good food and a good time, because God is actually for you. In Psalm 119, as I've studying that over the last few weeks, I really like the sections in there where the psalmist is going, you know, life isn't working very well, and where are you, God? And why is there suffering and these bad things and this tough stuff happening in my life? He kind of asks those questions. Then he always ends with, but here's what I know, that you're good. Even when there's bad stuff going on, I still know that you, God, are good. He's a good God. Second, we talked about how God is holy. Holy is a word that's become too holy. Like, holy. Well, holy just means separate, different, distinct, unique. Now, it speaks of God's moral purity, yes, and speaks of his righteousness, but it doesn't mean that somebody is 100 times better than the next guy and that makes them holy. That's not what God is. God's actually in a whole nother category as holy, distinct and completely other to us. And by the way, that does sort of produce kind of an aversion sometimes where you're like, whoa, man, I mean, God in his holiness, I can't even approach him. I can't even come close to him. And there's a sense where that's true. And Jesus is the one who fixed that. We'll talk more about that later. So he's good, he's holy. And the third one is loving. That he is loving. Love. Every human being is looking for love. And there is a God with unlimited love that is offering it to anybody that seeks him. God's love even goes to people that don't like him at all right now. Love simply means willing the best for someone, willing the best for someone. Here's how I said it in the sermon. I said, God's love is warm and affectionate and kind and gracious and patient and strong and enthusiastic and optimistic and joyful and serious and enabling and stabilizing and confidence building. Just this long list of what God's love is like. And so if God loves you, then I assert you can actually take on anything because you've got nothing to lose because you'll never lose His love. On the foundation of His love, you can live your life and never lose God's love for you. All right, so here's what I want you to do is discuss those three. Good, holy, loving. Which one of those aspects of God, which one of those descriptions of God's personality and character is most interesting and helpful for you, and why? Is it His goodness? Is it His holiness? Is it His love? And just talk a little bit about why that impacts you today. Okay, guys, here's your last question for today's small group. And this is that last little section in the sermon. It was very brief, but I think very poignant. And it has to do with what does God want? So we've established that there is a God. We talked a little bit about what He's like. Okay, the next question, rationally, maybe logically, would be, well, what's He want? And the answer that I gave you was so simple and yet so profound is He wants you. He wants you. Now, when somebody wants something, it's usually for them, right? They want control, they want power, they want money, they want to get their way, or they want you to do something the right way. If your boss wants you to do something, it might not be for you that he wants that, but for him or her or for the company to make a profit, whatever it is. When somebody wants something, it's usually because they need something out of it. God doesn't. That's so interesting. Like, He's got no agenda here, no strings attached to this, and there's nothing really that we could bring to Him that's going to make God go, okay, good, I finally got it. None of that. God doesn't want His own way because He's already got it. This is stuff I mentioned in the sermon, that He doesn't want His own glory because He's already got it. He doesn't want His own power because He's already got it. He doesn't want His own control because He's already got it. He doesn't want to be loved because He already is. He doesn't want to be proved right because He already is. And so what does He want then? Well, He wants you, but here's where this benefits us. He wants you for you. He wants us for us. He wants you for your own good. That when you come to God, it's not that God benefits from it, you benefit from it. And He wants that for you. It's like a good coach. Like, some coaches are just all about winning and it's their record and reputation and all that stuff. We know that. But most coaches actually want to bring the best out of their players. She wants her players to be stronger and better and even to learn how to be a great citizen because of the experience they had in their athletics. Or a music coach, for instance, same kind of deal. They want you to thrive. That's kind of what God is like. He wants you to thrive. He wants things from you, for your good. So it's really cool to have God be that caring and personal with us. So here's the way we're going to close small group today. This one's kind of maybe a little intimate. So I know it's only your second or third week, but maybe you could take just a little risk and talk a little bit about this. And so here's the question. What's holding you back from giving all of you to God? What kind of things are an obstacle or an impediment? What's getting in the way? What are some things about you, some things you've been thinking about, things you've been doing? What is the stuff that's holding you back from just recklessly abandoning yourself to a God who is so awesome, so loving, so wise, so kind, that He wants your life to be awesome and He wants you to thrive, and what you need to do is give yourself completely to Him? Well, then what's holding you back? And then, how might we be able to help you with that? What's holding you back? How can we help? Hope you have a good conclusion to your group. See you next week.